A United States education is your gateway
to a great American campus experience,
to pursue your passions,
to navigate cultural differences,
to gain real-world experiences,
to learn skills for a changing job market,
to thrive in your career,
to give back to your community and to the world,
to be the kind of person that you wouldn't have dreamed to be otherwise.
Come study in the United States.
Hello everyone, my name is Elida. I'm EducationUSA advisor. Please welcome, I hope you're all doing well and enjoying hot summer days. So welcome to our today's webinar, and our topic is studying law in the USA. Today we're honored to have representatives from 3 universities, and you will have an opportunity to ask questions and learn deeper about law in the USA. So please let me introduce you our dear speakers. We will have 3 of them. First is Hannah Logan, Assistant Director of International Programs from University of Minnesota Law School. Sarah Dorner, Assistant Dean for Graduate Admissions and International Outreach, University of New Hampshire, Franklin Pierce School of Law, and Ashley Seen, Director of Admissions, Graduate and International Programs, University of Southern California, Gould School of Law. I'm very much excited, and please, floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you, Alida. If we can go to the next slide. Perfect. The agenda for today. Hello, everyone. We are very happy to be here with you. We will begin our presentation by introducing ourselves and our schools. We will take time to give a general overview of the U.S. legal education system and what an LLM degree and different law degrees are. We will talk about how to find the best LLM program for you, how to search for those once you decide what you're looking for, and then we will go in some good detail about the LLM application process. There will be time at the end for questions and answers, but if you want to put any questions in the chat, you're welcome to do that too. Next slide, please. All right, as Alida mentioned, I'm Hannah Logan. I'm the Assistant Director of International Programs from the University of Minnesota Law School. As you can see on the map, we are located in the north of the country, right in the middle. It's a beautiful state, lots of outdoor things to do. Our law school has 3 degree programs that my office handles in addition to the JD program, the LLM, the Business Law LLM, and the SJD program. If you earn the general LLM, you may earn one of our 11 concentrations if you want. They are not required, but some students think that's a nice way to have an extra credential and show that they have an area of expertise in a particular topic. We automatically consider all admitted students for scholarships. We have a really, really great pre-LLM legal English program in the summer. Once the regular semester starts, all students are in the same classroom together. LLMs, JDs, SJDs, they're all integrated in the same classrooms. And then we have several practical experiences that international students have access to help make the most of their time in Minnesota. We are a medium metropolitan area, so the cost of living is very affordable. The weather is very interesting. We have lots of professional sports teams and many Fortune 500 companies. So it's a very dynamic, interesting place to be. If you have more questions about that generally at the end, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to my colleague next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Dorner, and I am at the University of New Hampshire Franklin Pierce School of Law. We are the only law school in the state of New Hampshire, and we're located about 1 hour north of Boston, Massachusetts. So it's a lovely, kind of like it's a small city, but a nice community here. You can walk downtown to Main Street, and just a real nice community feel. We have 3 specialized LLM programs at our law school. So those are in the areas of intellectual property, commerce and technology, and international criminal law and justice. And you'll see on the screen there that some of those programs are offered online and others on campus only. Our IP program is offered both on campus or online. We've been a top-ranked school for intellectual property law for over 30 years now, and as a result have a fabulous alumni network that spans the globe in over 80 countries. Students in our program have the opportunity to enroll in our clinics to get some hands-on experience in course credit. So we have opportunities. We have an IP and transaction clinic and an international technology transfer institute. And then we also host what we call immersive classes. And so these are typically held sort of during vacation weeks, kind of in between like fall and spring semester. And we'll take students to different locations where they can connect with folks in the industry. Recently, we've been to Silicon Valley, Las Vegas, and a course in Hawaii in conjunction with the World Intellectual Property Organization. We have an academic success program that helps students with the skills that they need to be successful in the U.S. legal classroom, and then also offers some support for students who are interested in preparing for a U.S. bar exam. Our career services office is absolutely amazing. They are working with students one-on-one to help them achieve their goals. So whether that's staying here in the US to pursue optional practical training once you've completed your degree, or if that is to return home and either kind of maybe you're not returning to the job you came from, but looking to advance in your career, they are here to help. And we do have a number of partial tuition scholarships that are available to students in our LLM program, and that is built into our application process. So I would be happy to share more about all of that with you and look forward to the presentation today.
Hello, my name is Ashley Sim. I'm the Director of Admissions at the University of Southern California, Gould School of Law. We are located in the heart of Los Angeles, California, which is the second largest city in the US for the legal market. I encourage you to learn more about our school using the QR code on the screen. We offer a variety of degrees in law, including both general and specialized LLM degree programs that I manage. We have a full range of academic career and bar advising and programming to support our students. We have students from 40 different countries every year, and it's wonderful to see so many different types of students coming and joining our programs. We offer 2 start times in August and January, and students who are admitted are automatically considered for various scholarships. So at the end, we'll provide our contact information as well. If you have questions for us after today's webinar, we'd be happy to talk to you about our programs and our schools and studying law in the US. So with that, we will start our presentation. Next slide, please.
All right, thank you, Ashley and Hannah. So I'm going to get us started with just kind of a high-level overview of like why even consider studying law in the USA. And so I think first and foremost that particularly with either the JD or the LLM program, these are internationally recognized credentials that will really help your resume or your CV stand out, no matter where you hope to practice law someday. Certainly, it's a great opportunity to improve your legal English skills, which as our world becomes more and more global, having those skills is really important. Similarly, it gives you the opportunity to increase your knowledge and understanding of U.S. law and the legal system here in the U.S. That what we hear from our alumni is that it really helps with their practice no matter where they're practicing law. It gives you the opportunity to network with lawyers from around the world. Both as we've shared, our programs draw students from around the world. So you'll get to really build your network while you're here and then through the alumni networks as well. And then just gives you that opportunity to increase your cultural competency. I think employers really value people who kind of took that risk to go abroad and live in a new country and study in a new language. It gives you some practical experience in the U.S. legal system. So this could be through coursework, through clinics that we already mentioned, through volunteer experience or internships, or if you choose to stay after you've completed the program and gain some work experience here in the U.S. And all of this will be beneficial to you as you move through your career, and put you in line for, potentially a promotion or a new job that can really leverage the skill set that you gain while you're a student here. All right. So I'll start now with just an overview of the U.S. legal education system here, because it's a little bit different, I think, than most other countries. So here in the U.S., the LLM is the postgraduate degree that sits on top of the JD. So in the U.S., students go to school for typically a 4-year bachelor's degree, and this can be in any field, in any what we call majors. If they want to be a lawyer, after they finish their bachelor's degree, they then need to get a JD degree, the Juris Doctor. And this is a 3-year program. And then after they've earned their JD, if they wish to continue to study, the next degree would be the LLM. And oftentimes for US students, that tends to be in a more specialized area of the law. For international students, they may choose a specialized area, or they may choose something that's more kind of foundational to American law. So that's kind of the system here. For many foreign lawyers, they are able to gain entrance to the LLM program after completing just their bachelor's degree, typically the LLB or another first professional degree in law. So they have the opportunity to completely bypass that 3-year JD degree and go straight from their bachelor's degree to the LLM. And so that helps that's what kind of can make that LLM degree so valuable. As I mentioned, where the first degree in law is general, that JD degree is a general law degree. The LLM can be general, but it can all be specialized or can also be specialized, and it will give you expert credentials in a specific area of the law. So as Hannah, Ashley, and I mentioned already, some of our programs do have specializations or concentrations in certain areas of the law. So that's the first part of the overview, and we'll go to the next slide, please. So just to help clarify the distinction between the JD versus the LLM. So the JD is a 3-year program, and it will give you the eligibility to sit for the bar exam here in the US. And that exam is required for any student who wishes to practice law in the US. The JD is the standard for attorneys practicing in the US. Most of the students in the program will be US students, though I think a lot of our programs see a handful of international students each year in the JD program, but the majority of students will be US students. And it is definitely the preferred credential for work here in the US. In contrast, you can earn your LLM degree in just 1 year. It may give you eligibility to take the bar exam in certain states. There's different rules for each state. So we encourage you to ask questions about that as you move towards the application process. It will give you the opportunity to choose a specialization if there's a specific area of the law that you want to focus in. In some cases, our schools do allow the option to transfer from the JD to the LLM. So you could do your LLM and then transfer over to the JD and potentially even earn that JD in just 2 years. And then the LLM program does tend to be more international students. We'll see some US students in the program, but the vast majority will be international students. Next slide, please. Okay, and then just 2 other degrees to mention as we talk about the US legal education system. So there is the SJD. This is kind of like a PhD, more similar. So it can take 3 to 7 years, and it's a research-based doctorate. This is common for academic professions around the world, less common here in the US, but we do see that there are international students from around the world that do want to earn this SJD for their careers in academia. There's also the MLS, or this can take on different kind of titles, but like a legal master's degree. So this is a 1-year master's of legal studies that is for students who have a bachelor's degree in an area other than the law, but don't really need that full JD degree. They're just looking for some legal training. So this is more common for US students who are kind of working in law adjacent jobs. But we are seeing international students also have interest in this These can be, again, general or more specific in different areas. So as I mentioned, at UNH Franklin Pierce, our LLM programs are specialized in certain areas, and those programs also offer the masters in those specializations. So different options out there to be mindful of as you're considering your next step. All right, and Hannah, I'll turn it over to you now to talk about finding the best fit.
Thanks, Sarah. So Ashley and Sarah and I do lots of these types of webinars, and we spend a lot of our time advising prospective students. People come to us and say, I want to earn my LLM degree in the United States. What should I look for? How do I decide which school is right for me? In all of our time, we've realized there are 4 sort of categories that we encourage students to think about. Academics, of course, your professional goals, what you're looking for geographically, and then some more of your personal goals and needs while you are there. On the next slide, we'll start with academics. So obviously, you're coming to the United States to earn a degree. The academic part of this is very important. You will want to think about what degree you are eligible for. So for the LLM degree, like we talked about, you will need an LLB or other law degree from outside the US. You will also need probably a minimum English proficiency score via TOEFL or IELTS. Ashley will talk about that later. So look at programs for which you are eligible. What credentials do you already have that make you eligible to come to one of our programs, for example? As Sarah's mentioned, there are many general and many specialized degrees. So think about what you want. Do you want to take a lot of different types of courses about different topics, or focus on one subject very specifically? Sometimes they call these concentrations or specializations, but that's something to think about what you want in the classroom. Many law schools offer a summer orientation or English program to help prepare you. Some of these are required, some of them are optional. We always encourage students to do these if they're optional, excuse me. It is a really great way to prepare yourself for the regular school year and being enrolled in the program. Different students want different things as far as public versus private universities, as far as what size of the university. Some people want a big 10, tens of thousands of students at the university, and some people want a smaller, maybe private religious school, different things. So think about the general university as well as in your specific program. Our 3 programs have different numbers of students. Some LLM programs have 200 or 300 students, some have 15 or 20. So think about what environment you want to be in while you are studying. On the next slide, we will talk about the professional aspect of all of this. So you want to think about when you are done with your degree and you go home, or you are thinking about getting a job later. I see there's a chat in the comment, a question about that too. You'll want to think about your professional network, the connections you will have that might be useful for you in your work. We all have students from all over the world. Is it going to be most useful for you to have a lot of connections in your region or in your country? Or are you going to be working somewhere where you will be interacting with people from all over the world on different continents? And think about then what your classmates are going to be like, where they're going to be from, how many they're going to be, like I mentioned in the last slide too. All of us live in cities where you'll have access to professional communities and organizations, things like the bar associations. They all invite students to join and do some networking and professional development that way. Many students who want to take the bar do a professional bar preparation course. Some schools have more support for that than others. And then, of course, you'll want to think about what you want to do immediately after your degree. Some students want to stay for the optional practical training, which is when you can extend your visa for 1 year to work or intern or volunteer. And some students just they're ready to go home and start their professional career and really dig in there. So think about what that's like. The EducationUSA advisors can tell you more about OPT, I think, but that's something to consider. Next slide, please. Geographically, this sounds silly. People laugh when I ask this question, but how much sunshine do you need? Some of us are very accustomed to climates where it's very snowy in the winter and hot in the summer, or maybe it's sunny all year round, like in Los Angeles. It depends, you need to be happy what you're doing or where you are. And so you'll need to think about, maybe you've never seen snow before and you want to do that for the first time. New Hampshire or Minnesota are great places to do that. You want to think about how much access to nature you want. Would being at a school in a small town where you can go to parks or hike in mountains very easily, is that important? Or do you want to be in a big city, lots of professional events, things like that? Something to think about what you need to be happy, right? Thinking about transportation, if you are in a big city, it's more likely that they will have more public transportation. If you're in a small town in the United States, that is less common, but there are certainly exceptions to that as well. So if you have the money and the time and you plan to buy a car when you're in the United States, that matters less, but it is something to think about. Next slide, please. And finally, what do you need outside of class to be happy and successful? You cannot be successful if you are not at least a little bit happy. So think about things like, do you want to make lifelong personal friends while you are there? Or are you mostly interested in just finding professional colleagues that might be able to help you with questions you have in the future that are work related? Do you want to have a community in the city or town where you are that has a similar cultural background to you? Do you want to be able to eat foods you're familiar with, go to different cultural celebrations and music festivals, things like that? Do you need easy access to an international airport? Is your sister getting married while you're here and you need to be able to make that trip easily and quickly, or is that not as important? I will say this is a lot of information. We can make these slides available to you at the end, but I also always encourage prospective students to ask people like Ashley and Sarah and me if they can talk to an alumni or current student to ask about their experience and get that personal perspective. We are administrators, we can answer a lot of questions, but we haven't had that exact same experience of being an international student in the United States studying law. So feel free. We encourage you to ask for those personal connections if you have questions and want that perspective. Next slide, please. So once you have thought about all of those things and decided sort of the general idea of what you want out of your LLM program, you get to start searching. And there are lots and lots of places you can go to find more information about the programs. EducationUSA is an amazing place to start. We work with the advisors and different people a lot, and so they have a good amount of information and can help you through the process. LSAC, Ashley will talk about in a minute. That's the online application portal. They have a directory of LLM programs you can search. Within there by school or category. You can sign up for something called CRS, which gives us permission to contact you directly. The American Bar Association has a great list of specializations. There are third-party sites like LLM Guide, LLM Study, different things like that have interesting profiles about us. Keep in mind that those third-party sites are advertisements. We as schools pay to be featured there, so it is an excellent resource, but make sure you're also checking directly with the schools, with LSAC, things where we aren't advertising specifically. You're welcome to go on LinkedIn and search for people who graduated from this program in your region if you want, or just generally, and contact them. If you want the most accurate, current, and direct information, the law school websites are always the best place to go. You can also join our mailing list there, sign up for more information. And then, of course, attending virtual events like these is a fantastic way to get information directly from the source. The last thing I will say on this slide and for my section is the U.S. News and World Report rankings are an important part of this search process for people. It should be one part, not the only part. Please don't limit yourself to only the top 14 schools, for example. And keep in mind that if you are searching for an LLM program, those programs are not factored into the ranking. That is on JD programs alone. Obviously, if you go to a top-ranked law school, according to U.S. News and World Report, you will have access to many of those things that are factored into the ranking, but it isn't about LLM programs specifically as far as the general law school rankings go. And with that, I will turn it over to Ashley.
Thank you so much. So if you have taken into consideration everything that Sarah has just said and Hannah has just shared, and you've identified some programs that you wish to enroll in, then it may be time to put together your application. Each school may have slightly different requirements, but generally your application for a particular school may be made up of the following components. One, the application form, of course, which asks for basic information about yourself, including your contact information and educational history. Be mindful of submitting the right application form. For instance, at my school at USC, we offer a lot of different degree programs, both on campus and online, for a couple different terms. And so it can be confusing, and you want to go through and make sure that you're filling out the right application form. Second, your resume or CV. That provides a great skeletal outline of your academic, extracurricular, and professional background. I personally love starting out my application review by looking at the resume, as it at a glance gives me a great summary of the applicant. So take your time and think about your resume and CV. Third, your personal statement or essays that you write allow you to fill in that skeleton to share who you are and why you are pursuing the degree program that you're applying to. I find that the personal statement is a great place to determine whether the applicant is the right fit for my school's program. So give some thought and write your personal statement to make a good case for yourself. Fourth, your university transcript and law degree verification are critical for meeting eligibility and academic requirement for the LLM degree programs. There may be some different verification or degree requirements if you're applying to other degree programs like the JD or the MLS. So just be mindful of what you need to submit in terms of transcript and degree verification information. Next, your English proficiency exam score report. That allows the school to determine your ability to thrive in the classroom in English. And so I would expect that most programs will require that you submit some sort of demonstration that you are proficient in English. And finally, letters of recommendation, typically 1 to 2 may be required. And this allows for those of you or those who know you really well to provide an assessment that adds a helpful component to your application. So think about the different elements or components of your application and make sure that you meet all of the requirements. Next slide, please. Now that you know the application components, we can go over the application process. I'm going to go over the application process for the LLM program. But much of this will apply for other degree programs that you may be applying to at a US law school. First, I'd recommend that you determine whether you need to take the English proficiency exam. As if you do, you may need to build in some time to prepare for it. So I would start there first. You may qualify for a waiver, for instance, if you have graduated from a university in which the language of instruction was in English, but each university may have different requirements for qualifying for a waiver, so you should really check. If you are required to take the exam and you've done it already, you may be required to retake it if it has been some years ago. So again, it's prudent to check in advance with the law schools that you intend to apply to about the requirement for demonstrating English proficiency. TOEFL and IELTS are accepted by most, if not all, schools, and no other standardized exams are required for applying to the LLM program. In contrast, if you're applying for the JD program, you're most likely required to take the LSAT or the GRE exam. So be mindful of that. Next slide, please. Second, determine if you should apply through the Law School Admission Council or LSAC. Some schools require you to apply through LSAC and use their transcript authentication and evaluation service. Others may allow you to apply directly to them. As all US law schools use LSAC, it may be convenient way to apply to more than one school, as you'll only be required to submit your transcript and degree information once, and then LSAC can turn around and serve as a clearinghouse for sending all of your application materials to the different schools. You do have to pay LSAC fees to use their services, but the individual law schools may be helpful in providing waivers for their own application fees. Once you have an LSAC account open, it is good for 5 years. So for instance, you decide to defer and apply a year later, everything that LSAC has received for you and processed should still be good and available in your account. Next slide, please. Third, contact the university where you obtained your LLB degree to request transcript and degree information. Of course, if you are applying for the JD program or the MLS program, you're not required to have an LLB degree. You will have some sort of an undergraduate degree requirement. If you're applying through LSAC, it's great to download the transcript form from your LSAC account to provide to your university so that LSAC can easily match the documentation they receive on your behalf. Whether or not you use LSAC, the law schools you apply to will require that the documentation is official, which means they don't come from you, but come from the university directly. Plus, they may require an English translation. So it's a good idea to communicate with your university about the package they're putting together to send to LSAC or onto the law schools. Fourth, be mindful of all of the different application deadlines for the law schools you're applying to. Some have earlier deadlines for application waivers and scholarship consideration. Depending on the programs that you're applying to, they may have very different application deadlines. You may wish to consult with EducationUSA and the law schools you're applying to make sure you're submitting all required documents by the application deadlines. It's a great idea to apply early so that you have sufficient time to prepare for your student visa and arrive in the US well before classes begin. I believe Hannah talked about orientation that occurs at different schools, and you want to make sure that you don't miss any orientation activities because your visa is not ready. So build in that time, speak with EducationUSA, speak to the law schools that you're applying to, and make sure that you're building in a cushion of time. And next slide, please. So yeah, I think it's time for Q&A at this point. We're happy to take your questions. And as we said earlier, we're happy to connect with you after today's webinar. Our contact information is on the screen for you. Yeah, we hope that you will consider studying in the US and pursue a law degree.
Dear all, thank you very much for this presentation. It was a lot of information. And we have a couple of questions. So maybe let's start with the first one, which we see on the screen. Not being US citizen, how likely is it for us international students to get jobs in the law field in the US? For example, defense attorney. If you can address this question, that would be great.
I'll start. It's so hard to answer. I think, and to be really just direct and transparent, like it's hard. It's hard to get a job. It's hard for, I think it does, but it also depends. So, and I'd be curious if you're talking kind of long-term or if you're talking, for OPT after you finish your degree. And some of it will depend on which degree program you have. So when we talked in the beginning about the legal education system here, that if you're looking to work here in the US as a lawyer, then the JD degree would probably be the better fit option for you than the LLM if your long-term goal is to be here and working. And then in which case your citizenship status, as long as you have the degree and you've passed the bar exam, you're just as eligible as the next person for that job. I'll pause there and let me see if Ashley or Hannah have anything that they would want to add.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that you should consider if you are thinking about working in the US with an LLM degree in particular. First, I think you need to make sure that you plan to pass the bar exam in the state in which you wish to practice. And, you know, in the US, you have to be able to be eligible with a license to practice in that particular state. So you have to be really preparing and planning for not only the LLM degree program, but building in that time afterwards to sit for a bar exam. So typically, let's say you in the US, the LLM degree ends in May, and then you sit for the bar exam in July. So between May and July, you need to be able to prepare full-time studying for that bar exam. And our law schools will help you, understand the bar exam. We will offer bar subject courses. We may be offering workshops on taking the bar exam. Make the most of all of those, but also build in that time to really study for that bar exam. Also, take advantage of all of the career advising that our schools offer. That LLM degree program goes really fast. Sarah said it's 1 year. And that's a blink of an eye sometimes. And so you don't want to wait until the end to talk with a career advisor. Because then you're really pressed for time. So start early with career development and really work towards what you want to do. Our career advisors at USC provides like a hefty manual, and they host workshops. And we really encourage our students to attend those things and make use of those resources, because the students who are really successful in obtaining a job in the US are people who are really proactive and assertive about making use of everything that our schools offer. There are LLM job fairs, one in New York and one in Los Angeles, that our students participate in. That can be helpful. And also, I think Sarah mentioned something called OPT, or optional practical training, that allows you to extend your student visa for an additional year to sit for the bar exam and also pursue a job in the US. And a lot of our students who are really successful at securing a full-time job are successful because they made use of that OPT time to work at a company, at a law firm, that will then lead to a permanent position for them. And so, really making good use of that additional year is really helpful, and not also looking at the biggest law firms, but also looking at smaller and mid-sized firms and companies are helpful too. So I think there's a lot that a student can do to maximize their chances of having a job in the US, but it's not easy. As Sarah said, it's hard to, as an international student on a student visa, to come to the US and pass the bar exam and secure a permanent position. But there are students who are successful, but they are really making the effort. I don't know, Hannah, do you want to add anything further?
I would only say it is possible, but it is difficult.
Yeah, thank you. It sounds all clear. I understand the doubts and fears related to this issue, because as you can imagine, if you graduated from law school in the United States, you're gonna be limited to working in the future within the United States, within the US law system. And just in case if there would be some restrictions to international students, that would be risky. So I understand this question. So just to clarify, to get a license as a working attorney, you are not limited as an international student. You can apply for this license with the equal opportunities and equal chances as other US citizens. Am I right?
It depends. It depends on the position and the company that they're hiring for. Yes, that is generally true for the OPT period, that 1 year after your degree is done. After that, if you're looking for a permanent position, many law firms, many companies, things like that, will require you to be a US citizen, or if they are willing to apply for the H work visa and sponsor a student or an LLM graduate who's an international citizen, that is a long, expensive process. So some law firms and companies are willing to do that, but not all. So it really depends a lot on whether you just want a short-term position for OPT. That's certainly more common and more companies understand that. The long-term H employment visa in the United States is more difficult.
I see. But it's similar to any other fields in jobs in STEM, in social science, anything. Anyways, it's going to be relatively hard to get work visa. And it's an issue for all the international students, but it doesn't mean that you're risking, or it doesn't mean you will have lower chances. It's just a struggle that international student has to face, and it's a normal thing. So I wouldn't recommend being afraid of that. It's just a normal, I think, process, and all international students go through that. If we're talking about OPT, or what was that? Is it OPT? EPT? Yes? If we're talking about that, it's gonna be more like an internship, but more like a long-term work. It's gonna be all connected to work visa. Will you be able to get it or not? But these risks are common for any field. So it's not necessarily connected to the field of law. Okay, thank you very much for your answer. Yeah, thank you. Let's move on to the next question. And next question is, what about online LLM, MLS degree in investment law? Which accreditation is good for a law institution?
So I'm not certain I'm fully understanding the question. Here's a couple of thoughts, and if the person who asked that question is still here and we're not answering, please let us know. So first, the LLM is for students who already have a first degree in law from their home country, whereas the MLS is for students who have a bachelor's degree in a field other than the law. So that's the distinction between the degree itself. In regards to kind of online or on campus, what I can say here is that I think different countries have different positions on accepting online education. I think more and more, particularly in this post-COVID world, is becoming friendly towards online learning. But there are certainly some countries or governments that won't accept the degree if it's been earned online. Most students, speaking for my school, our online program is accredited, like our institution is accredited, and then therefore the online program is accredited. You might, if you're considering online, you might ask the school too if the modality, the teaching modality, is reflected on the certificate or the diploma that you get on the end. And in many cases, it's not. So our students in our in-person program receive the same diploma that the students in our online program receive. At the same time, of course, you want to be honest about how you earned your degree. So, transcripts might reflect something differently. But the accreditation piece, our degree is the same regardless of how you earn it. But depending on what your goals are for earning that degree, you might want to check and make sure that an online degree would be accepted. I'm not sure if I'm answering that, or Ashley, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I think to add to what Sarah said, I guess you want to think about what your goal is, like why you might be pursuing an LLM degree or an MLS degree, and why you might want to do it on campus or online. And So in addition to the eligibility aspect of it and the convenience factor that you might need to think about and your other commitments that you have, you might want to think about, for instance, if you are wanting to practice law in the US, there are some states in which they require that you have completed an LLM degree in the United States on campus. And so, for instance, New York requires that you complete an on-campus LLM degree program. So if you do it online, you may not meet the eligibility requirement for a bar exam. California is a little bit more flexible. So you might want to think about like what your goal is for pursuing that degree. An MLS degree, as Sarah said earlier in our webinar, it's for people who are in law adjacent fields. They have no intention of practicing law. And so they're just trying to understand fundamental aspects of the law to help them in their non-legal career. And so whether you want to pursue a legal career in the US is what you might want to think about when you're thinking about LLM versus MLS, on campus versus online. I hope that was helpful, Ivan.
Yeah, totally. It was helpful. Thank you. Next question. What about Duolingo? Do you accept it?
I can take this one. Most law schools do not accept Duolingo, but some do. So that is each school has specific requirements and which tests they'll accept. So definitely check with each school specifically about that. But generally, I would say probably not. It's a great way to practice, but usually not how we as law schools want to see that your academic English is proficient.
Yeah, I agree, actually. Usually, I do not recommend Duolingo if you're doing master's or PhD in any field. For me, personally, it seems like Duolingo is one of the, first of all, cheaper ways, but second of all, it's an easier way to just demonstrate your English. And what do you think? If you see someone did Duolingo, if your school accepts Duolingo, and instead of TOEFL or IELTS student did Duolingo, will you have some kind of a suspicion that his English might be not that good?
I think if a school accepts the test, then they've set, sort of a minimum standard that they're willing to accept. In some cases, they might do like an interview over Zoom or some other online platform to assess for English language proficiency. But I think whatever test that the schools accept, as long as the student meets the minimum threshold, that there won't be like suspicion. If we're willing to accept a test, then we're accepting it in good faith. But if there's ever any doubts or concerns, a school might reach out to have a conversation.
Great. Thank you. And before people started leaving the live stream, dear all, you see in the chat probably our link to Google Forms, and it would be a nice way to stay in touch with our universities. In the future, you will get some letters, some more in-depth information, maybe some announcements. So it's a nice and good way just to stay in touch. You can follow the link, and I think that's it. Do you have something else to say about the link?
It's just a chance for you to sign up to be on our mailing list. So if you want to be included, like Alila said, in announcements or news or things like that, if you want to ask us for an application fee waiver because you were at this webinar, sign up for our mailing list and we'll make sure to include you in any news or updates about that in the future.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing you said, because often students do not know about this kind of application fee waivers. Sometimes it's a really nice life hack. If you do not want to pay application fee, Sometimes you can ask the college, the university, if they have some application fee waivers. But in our case, we have this nice little form where you can maybe receive later on the promo code for application fee waiver. That's great. Thank you very much. I actually do not see any other questions, but I have a couple more questions from my own experience. As an Education USA advisor, we receive some questions regarding law schools in the United States. So let's address this one first. Are there any specific experiences you recommend for undergraduate students applying to pre-law programs, such as taking courses related to law?
So I'm if they're saying so here in the US, pre-law would be kind of during the bachelor's degree, you might do like a focus in pre-law prior to the JD. I need to see that question again. It disappeared. But any courses to take if you're, I think what I would say is if you know that there's a certain area that you want to specialize in the law, then taking classes that are relevant to that so that you have some knowledge is helpful. But I think it would really depend on what you're looking to do. And so I think Hannah, Ashley, or any one of us would be happy to speak with you individually to better understand your professional goals and your interests to help advise.
Yeah, and if I can jump into, I think Sarah mentioned this at the very beginning, but in the United States, we do not have a bachelor's of law degree. So if you are planning to come to the United States for your undergraduate studies, you can study many, many different things. You cannot study law specifically. You can be in like a pre-law track where you agree with your advisor that your goal is to go to law school eventually, but we do not have an LLB or a bachelor's of law degree. In the United States, lawyers are required to take the bar exam. Most of the times they are required to have a JD degree. The JD is the law degree, but the bachelor's degree before that can be in anything: English, political science, neurobiology, whatever you might be interested in. And then you go get the law degree later. So if your goal is to come to the United States for an LLM, you must have a law degree from your home country. If your goal is to come to the United States and earn a JD, you can earn your bachelor's degree in anything, including coming to the United States for your bachelor's degree in whatever you're interested in. Does that help?
Yeah, and to add to what Sarah and Hannah said, if you are wanting to pursue a JD in the US, while an undergraduate degree in law is not expected because we don't offer that generally in the US, we do want some demonstration of your interest in the law. So you may have taken a class or done an internship or volunteered for some legal organization. For instance, I volunteered with legal nonprofits when I was an undergraduate student before I applied for my JD. You want to demonstrate like a good reason why you're applying to that degree program. And you want to talk about that in your personal statement and make it obvious in your resume as to why you have chosen to apply for this program, why you intend to study the law, why you want to be an attorney, because of the experiences that you've had. So I think looking for that kind of experience around you locally in whatever capacity you have is really helpful, not only to apply to the right program and to get in and be admitted to that program, but also to confirm to yourself like why you want to pursue that program. Because then, you will learn like, gosh, this is what the law is about. And I'm really committed to it. I'm really passionate about it. Or you decide, you know what? I thought I was interested in the law. I don't think I am anymore based on my experience. So take the time to really pursue an experience that is local to you, whatever is around you. And hopefully that'll make you more excited about studying law in the US.
Yeah, that's great. It made it more clear. Thank you. Let's talk about the next question. If I have a bachelor in law in Egypt and I want to take a second bachelor in United States in political science field, is it useful or what?
It depends. It depends on what your goals are. Like I mentioned earlier, if you want to stay in the United States and earn a law degree as well, and then maybe practice law, sure, it's useful. If you want to just earn an undergraduate degree, a bachelor's degree in the United States, and then go home to Europe or to Egypt and practice law, I don't know if that would be useful, but maybe that would be up to you.
Yeah, I mean, Ahmed, we'd like to know why you are considering a second bachelor's degree in political science in the US. Normally, people do not pursue 2 bachelor degrees. And so depending on why you're pursuing that second bachelor degree will help answer that question, because let's say afterwards you're applying for a master's degree or a JD or something like that, people will want to know why you did 2 bachelor's degrees. And so you'll have to kind of talk about that in your personal statements, or really make people understand why you're doing that. So I think for us, we'd have to know your purpose and your ultimate goal of why you are considering that second bachelor's degree.
Yeah, great answer. Totally agree. Do we have any more questions? Maybe I missed some of them. If not, I have like a short question, like from my own experience as an Education USA advisor. When international students are applying to a law school, we know that law and medicine are very expensive in the United States. But when they're applying for merit-based scholarships, what is the range they can expect? Like, can university cover 50% or less or more? Or what kind of terms do you have for that? Or do you have some kind of a graduate assistantships that can support the students and things like that?
So I think the amount will depend a lot on the school. So tuition will range significantly depending on the school that you're applying to, and definitely be different in certain parts of the country. So the range will really vary. I'll share that at our school, our tuition is $42,000 US for the LLM, and a typical scholarship is somewhere in the range of about, I would say, like $15,000 to $20,000 would be kind of average, but some students might get more, and that it was absolutely the case this year. So it will vary a lot. So I think the scholarship piece is an important question to ask each school that you're interested in, but also ask about the cost of living, because that can vary significantly throughout the US.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Sarah. Law schools generally will provide merit scholarships. And as I mentioned before, you'll want to find out if you have to apply separately to be considered for those scholarships, and whether you have to apply earlier, and whether you have to submit additional materials to be considered for scholarships. But generally, merit scholarships are varying in amounts. Because it is merit-based, we'll take a look at all the different elements of your application to determine, what merit scholarship, you would be eligible for. But generally, I would say schools do not provide a full tuition scholarships. Those are pretty rare. But they may still provide a significant amount of scholarship, maybe up to 50%, maybe more possible to think about.
I have nothing to add. I totally agree.
That's great. yeah, it made it more clear. Okay, there is an additional question from Ahmed. Do you see it in the chat? Because I sort of like lost the track of it.
I see it there. He's saying, is it for, this was the same person who asked about that they already had their bachelor's of law and wondered about getting a second bachelor's here in the US. And now he asks, is it applicable for the visa if I already have a bachelor and I'm going for another's bachelor? I want to be a diplomat in Egypt, and my high school degree doesn't make me to take the same degree here in Egypt. So I think if you're asking if you would be eligible for the student visa, like if you already have a bachelor's and you're coming for another bachelor's, I do think, I definitely have heard of visa officers where they're kind of saying to students, you already have a master's, why do you need another one? So that is possible that question would be asked, and you would certainly want to be prepared with a good rationale for why you are pursuing a second bachelor's and why that needs to be from within the U.S.
Yeah, I will say there are master's degrees in law or political science or public affairs that might be more applicable and make it easier for you to answer questions from the consular officer when you're at your visa appointment. I do think that would be the biggest obstacle. Certainly not impossible. But yeah, I have heard some of my students talk about getting questions at their visa appointment, like why do you need another master's of law specifically, or master's generally? The EducationUSA advisors might have good insight about this as well if you want to set up a meeting with them.
Thank you for addressing this question. I think it made it clear. So I don't see any more questions, and also our session is ending. I don't want to take too much of your time. Thank you very much for the presentation, for the Q&A session. It was amazing, and I know that for our students, for international students, law schools are very much relevant, and a lot of them want to go to law schools in the United States. But there's so many questions, so many things that are very unique for this field. And for all the students, all the potential students in our live stream, if you have further questions or you have individual cases you want to discuss with our DA representatives, please reach out to them.
That's just me. I think just exactly saying what you just said, that we truly are happy to connect with all of you. So please don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll put our emails in the chat right now so you have it. And then Hannah had left that link to the form as well. If you wish to join any of our mailing lists, we can help get you set up with that to keep in touch.
Yes, thank you so much to EducationUSA for advising students interested in studying in the U.S. And yeah, thank you so much for having us today.
Our pleasure. We're honored. Thank you very much for your time and efforts. Another thing for all our students, potential students, if you have more questions, of course, you can also address your local EducationUSA advisors, or plus you can reach out to our today's speakers. Thank you very much. It was very interesting and very much informative. And I wish you a great day.
Thanks, Alita. Thanks, everyone.